Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott, and you, my dear friends, have wandered onto the #1 prog rock channel on all of YouTube. Yeah, it's the Prog Corner, and today's episode is dedicated to Yes fans all around the world. Yeah, Yes is my favorite band, but just like, when you go to your favorite restaurant, and you order the Vindaloo, and it's just not the same as it used to be. It makes you really mad, And there's nothing that can get you worked up more than somebody or something that you trust and love betraying you. And I have felt betrayed by this band so many times over the years. Yet, like an abused spouse, man, I cannot break free. I just can't. I never will. I will always love this band. But man, there's some things that just really get my goat, that really bug me about this band. You know how it is. You can't get that all worked up about a band you don't care about, but a band you absolutely love, when they do something silly, it definitely, it makes you feel a certain kind of way. So today I am doing 10 things I hate about Yes. There's a lot more than 10. Number 11 would be, why did you stop using Roger Dean, right? I mean, that was just a bad decision. They should have had him for every album, but that's my personal opinion. But these are the 10 things that really get my goat about the great Yes. And at number 10, this is something that the band couldn't control, not their fault. I hate the fact that Chris Squire and Alan White aren't with us anymore, man. That just absolutely gets me. I cried for days when Chris Squire died. It really affected me when Alan left us. And, we're left with the rhythm section that, you go from Chris Squire and Alan White to Billy Sherwood and Jay Schellen. Nothing against those two guys. They're very good musicians, but come on, man, it's just not the same. The rhythm section's a little plodding now. Doesn't have that same energy or excitement level. So number 9. Number 9 is the constant petty bickering. I mean, it's ridiculous, man. These guys in this band act like they're 5 years old, man, and they always have. It's always been a disaster. There's always been problems. They've always been bickering about this, that, or the other thing. Bill Bruford talks about one of the reasons he left Yes was because they'd argue for like 3 hours about whether it should be a B or a B flat in the third measure. I kind of don't blame him. That would get old. But there was a lot of bickering during Close to the Edge that led to Bruford's, being shipped off to King Crimson, if you will. The next album, Tales, was filled with all kinds of drama and whatnot, as Rick Wakeman wasn't happy with anything going on. Then they go on tour, and the smell of Indian curry wafting across the stage probably didn't make John Anderson real happy. And then you had all their struggles in Paris, where the band finally broke up after Tormato, and then the whole Union debacle, which was just a mess. And then you had the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing, where they just acted like children and couldn't even look each other in the eye. It was absolutely disgusting. It was sickening. But at least Geddy Lee was there. Number 8. In the 10 things I hate about my favorite band, Yes, it is all those lineup changes that, all that constant bickering led to, right? And when you've got constant lineup changes, it's almost like you have to relearn the band. It's like being a fan of a sports team in the era of free agency, where you got a whole new team every year, and the college sports scene is the same way. Everybody going to the pros after their, freshman or sophomore year. So you got to learn your team. So it's almost like you're loyal to the brand. You're loyal to the logo and not to the individual players. And that does kind of upset me. But one thing about Yes and lineup changes, unlike a lot of bands, if you were a new member of Yes, you were already in Yes and you could contribute, right? Patrick Moraz contributed right from the first day he was in the band. Rick Wakeman, the same thing. The new members were always given a whole lot of freedom to do what they want to do, unlike other bands. So there was an upside to the lineup changes. Kept things fresh and interesting with new ideas and, fresh perspectives. But, give me Bruford, Squire, Wakeman, Howe, and Anderson any day of the week. Number 7 in the 10 things I hate about Yes, it's the treatment of Peter Banks. This guy is a founding member. This guy he was, R.I.P. Peter, guy that came up with the name for the band. He was very instrumental in the sound of the band. If you think about how does Yes sound, well, honestly, you listen to early Steve Howe recordings playing with Yes after the Time in the Word album. He was on that tour. He sounds just like Peter Banks, man. He was absolutely instrumental in getting that Yes sound. So he was treated so badly. Wasn't inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when Yes was. And I remember during the reunion tour, during that Union album, like 1991, they were running through LA, and I guess several members of the band invited Peter Banks to come backstage, get up on the stage for an encore. And then several other members said, absolutely not. You're not getting up on stage with me. The ego's just unbelievable. How about the treatment of Oliver Wakeman? That was just wrong, right? And ditto Benoit David. Just not right the way they just jettisoned these guys. Or how about Eddie Jobson, man? He thought he was in the band for like 3 or 4 months before, the manager sent him an email saying, oh, your services are no longer required. He's like, man, I've been brainstorming and I've been cramming, learning all these complicated Yes songs. Missed opportunities is kind of a constant theme with Yes. And you think back, how would that band have sounded if Eddie Jobson was in there instead of Tony Kaye? Absolutely. And then we get to the sad story of Patrick Moraz. Man, that guy just can't catch a break, right? He is like the ultimate replacement guy, right? He replaced Keith Emerson and The Nice, turned it into Refugee. He replaced Rick Wakeman and Yes. He replaced Mike Pinder and Moody Blues. And what's he get for all that trouble? Absolutely nothing, man. He's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for either the Moody Blues or Yes. Just wrong. That's not Yes's fault, but it does drive me crazy. At number 6. It's the lost album, lost opportunity, the no vinyl available on Key Studio, man. Rick Wakeman was really unhappy that they had kind of wasted this chance to debut brand new Yes material, good quality Yes material, burying them at the back end of a live album. Parts 1 and 2 were both structured the same way, so nobody was buying those records to hear the new stuff, and that was a huge problem, a huge mistake, another huge missed opportunity because Wakey was back in the band, man. Do what you need to do to keep him in the band. I guess he had an earache or a toothache or something, so he had to go back to the UK, and that was it. He was gone again. Oh, yeah, so the fact that one of their best albums is not available on vinyl, Key Studio, absolutely drives me bonkers. Maybe one day they'll correct that, but that's just not cool. It's not right. At number 5, and the 10 things I hate about Yes, I hate how John Anderson tried to come back in the band, but as a 50% member. That just ain't right, man, because at the time, Steve Howe, Chris Squire, and Alan White were still in the band. I could understand wanting 25%, right? But this cat wanted 50 to come back in Yes. That's the story. That's why he's not in Yes right now. Yes, he did get sick and he had some trouble and they had, tours booked and stuff like that. So, they wanted to move forward and John wasn't able to. They were going to work with him, but then he came back and said, yeah, I'll come back for 50%. That just wasn't going to happen, and that's not cool, dude. Not cool at all. Yeah, you're probably the most important member of Yes, obviously, but you're not worth 50%, and that was an insult to Chris Squire, Steve Howe, and Alan White, if you ask me. At number 4... it's the solo album era, man. What did they do? What were they thinking? I could understand if they take 1 year off, but these guys took 3 years off, man. It's like insane. Right at the height of their popularity, they decide, we're going to take a 3-year break between studio albums and drop solo albums that nobody cared about. Being a Yes fan, I cared about it. But let's be honest, the general public didn't care about Fish Out of Water or Elias of Sunhillow or Ramshackled. They just didn't, man. But there were some great, great, great songs on all those solo albums. Imagine if we'd gotten like 2 or 3 more albums with that Patrick Moraz lineup, utilizing that material. How exciting would that be? The story of Elias, Fish Out of Water, all kind of combined together. You get the idea, man. Because by the time Going for the One came out, the world had changed and it had left Yes behind. They were, they didn't quite understand that at the time, but they'd figure it out real quick that ship had sailed, that the 70s was over, and things were going to happen. And at number 3 for the 10 things I hate about Yes, it's the entire decade of the 80s. I mean, I'll make an exception for 1980 because I love drama. But, that's endemic of the whole problem with Yes is all these lineup changes and all this petty bickering back and forth and, people coming and people going, all this, that, and the other thing. But then we get to the 80s and you get 90125, which was actually a super strong pop album. I like every song on it. It sold extremely well, really well produced. And then you think, wow, Yes is back. And then takes them 4 years to put out the follow-up? Man, Yes should have been dominant in the 80s. Think about it. You have Trevor Rabin, who's capable of writing hit after hit. You've got the whole legacy of the band. You've got the 80s, like all synth and keyboard crazy. Yes was perfectly positioned to dominate the 80s, but because they couldn't get their act together, that just didn't happen. We got one more album in the 80s, Big Generator, which was absolutely terrible. Can't stand it. At number 2. Yeah, for the 10 things I hate about Yes, it's that every single keyboard player Yes has ever had refuses to play the keyboard parts correctly. What is going on with that, man? I don't care if it's Patrick Moraz, Tony Kaye, Rick Wakeman, Igor Khrushchev, Oliver Wakeman, Jeff Downs. None of them play the keyboard parts right. It drives me insane. In fact, the only guy that ever even tried, to be honest with you, that ever even tried to come close to replicating all the beautiful keyboard parts on the Yes studio albums is Tom Brislin, actually. You listen to the symphonic stuff that he was part of. He was never an official member of the band, so I think he actually had to work harder and try a little bit harder. Yeah, but it drives me nuts, man. It's absolutely wrong that you can't do the keyboard solo in Roundabout the right way. It's perfect. Why do you mess with it? Oh, it just drives me nuts. And it's been going on for years, man. It's not a new thing. I'm not just singling out Jeff Downs, although he's one of the most egregious people in that particular category. He just can't play it right, man. He's always off time. It's like, his monitors aren't working. And why is Jeff never looking at the crowd, man? All you see is Jeff's back for 2 hours. I don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that. Anyway, at number 1, the number one thing I hate about my favorite band, Yes, it's Steve Howe's voice, man. I mean, let's be honest. Back in the day, it was buried. You had Chris and John singing that tenor stuff so beautifully, and then you had this weird, croaky, low voice underneath. And Eddie Offord spent hours and hours trying to make Steve Howe's voice sound good and fit in with those other two guys whose voices were phenomenal. And it kind of worked in that context, but modern Yes, stripped of John Anderson and Chris Squire. You got John Davison, who'll do whatever Steve says. You got Steve singing lead in spots, which just, I'm sorry, Steve Howe should never sing lead, ever. I know his solo album Love Is was kind of cool with him singing lead and John Davison singing backup. But I think back to that very first Steve Howe solo album, Beginnings. I think of that song Australia, man. The first time I heard that, I'm like, why are they letting this guy sing, man? And then his second solo album's all instrumental. Okay, you learned your lesson, absolutely. So that's it, boys and girls. That's my top 10. Tomorrow on the program, I'm going to be looking at the band U2. How bad are they really? Do they suck as bad as you guys think they are? Because I've noticed in the comments that every time that band gets mentioned, you guys just don't like them at all. And I kind of do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that tomorrow as we continue Clickbait Week. And then next week is just going to be awesome as we dedicate the entire week to the great legendary rock band Nectar. Oh, yeah, it's going to be amazing. I love you guys. Peace in the Middle East. Free Tibet. And God save the king. Save King Chucky. Oh, that boy needs your saving. That song gone could use some saving right now. Bring that boy to America. We'll lay some hands on him. Oh, we'll do spells and incantations. Our prayer warriors are working for him. And we'll drink some poison. You know what we're going to do. And then we're going to dance with them snakes. Oh, Billy Bob's out of town, so I got to use these invisible snakes today. Oh, yeah. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.